Welcome to the wonderfully wacky world of Rida High, Thailand's creme de la creme of schools, where being a genius is just your average Tuesday. Picture Hogwarts, but instead of magic, there's math, and instead of sorting hats, there's the brutal reality of academic segregation. Rida High, notoriously known as the toughest nut to crack in all of Thailand, is where the country's future leaders and sports legends are supposedly baked. And let's not forget the school's strict regime, which could give military academies a run for their money. The students are sorted into sections like they're ingredients for a very complicated recipe. The higher your section, the more you're pampered. Think of it as a luxury hotel tier system, but for nerds. Section 1 students are living the high life. They get the royal treatment with shiny washrooms, extra large portions of cafeteria food, because brainwork burns calories, right? Plush dorms and a magical get-out-of-trouble-free card. As you move down the sections, the perks get smaller. By the time you hit Section 8, it's like you're in a completely different universe. One where academic privileges are a myth, bathrooms are a horror story. The food is more ration than portion, and you're packed into dorms like sardines. Enter our hero, Pang, the proud owner of the title, Rida High's least likely to succeed. He's the bottom of the bottom in Section 8, bullied and overlooked. But hey, at least he's got a title, right? His BFF is Nak, a Section 1 superstar. Thanks to this unlikely friendship, Pang gets to upgrade his living situation. Talk about friendship goals. Despite their chalk and cheese backgrounds, Nak and Pang are like two peas in a pod. Nak tries to play tutor, but Pang would rather rant about the unfairness of life than crack open a textbook. One day, in a bold move of culinary rebellion, Pang decides to play dress-up as a Section 1 student for better food. But oops, he ends up spilling his food on Wave, the resident genius with an ego bigger than the Burj Khalifa. Wave, who can solve complex problems faster than you can say calculator, demands Pang to clean his shoes or face the wrath of the principal. Just as Pang's about to be busted, Principal Latta steps in. But fear not, Super Nak to the rescue, spinning a tale that saves Pang's hide. Crisis averted, for now. Then comes the mid-semester tests, the academic Hunger Games of Rida High. The prize? A ticket to the gifted class, Rida's version of academic VIP. This elite group gets apartments, because dorms are so out of style, monthly health checkups, because brains need to be in tip-top shape, and a special curriculum, because regular classes are just too mainstream. Everyone's cramming like their life depends on it because, well, it kind of does. Nak's worried that Pang might be on the brink of getting kicked out. So, what do? They hatch a plan to steal the test papers. Because why study when you can scheme, right? But hold up, the papers look suspiciously easy. It's like expecting a mountain and finding a molehill. As the D-Day of the test arrives, everyone's on edge. Will Pang and Nak's grand plan pay off? Or will it crash and burn like a poorly made science project? Stay tuned to find out. Our hero, Pang, enters the battlefield of the midterms armed with a cheat sheet. But hold your horses. He decides to play it like a saint in a sinner's paradise. Halfway through, the speakers buzz with a message asking them to write their thoughts about evolution. Pang, being the obedient soul he is, starts scribbling away, but oddly, it appears that the other students couldn't hear the message. They just heard a loud noise. Pang is done with his essay while the rest of the class looks as clueless as a penguin in a desert. Flash forward to the big reveal at the notice board. Drum roll, please. Pang, the guy who couldn't spell IQ if you spotted him the I, gets into the gifted program. Meanwhile, Nak, his brainy buddy, gets the boot. Nak's convinced Pang turned into a secret genius overnight and cheated his way in. They have a moonlit chat where Nak is as convincingly fine about it as a cat in a bathtub. The next day, Pang struts into the gifted class like a peacock, where he meets Wave, the human equivalent of a thorn in a mattress. Pang befriends Om, a guy from the now seemingly pedestrian Section 2. Enter Mr. Palm, the enigmatic trainer for the elite brains. He starts his speech about the gifted program, where the #1 rule is what happens in gifted class stays in gifted class. During this TED Talk on steroids, Pang spots bizarre equations popping up on the screen like a glitch in the Matrix. At the end, Mr. Palm throws a math question that makes about as much sense as a fish riding a bicycle. Everyone else nods like they're at a rock concert, but Pang's as lost as a left sock in a washing machine. Mr. Palm then drops a mystery assignment on them. Figure out why they're in this classroom. It's like asking why chickens cross roads, but with more existential dread. Cut to a few days later, Pang and Nak have a showdown. Pang's lips are sealed about the gifted class, and Knack feels as neglected as a gym membership in February. Wave, the human sneer, fans the flames, leading to a tussle that knocks him out colder than a snowman's handshake. The principal's office becomes the arena for the next drama. Pang and Knack face the music, but Mr. Palm swoops in like a superhero with questionable morals. Pang's off the hook because he's gifted, while Knack gets double trouble. Pang tries to play the good guy, but Knack's as grateful as a cat being serenaded by a vacuum cleaner. Things escalate faster than a rabbit on a date, and they end up trading friendship bracelets for boxing gloves. Their friendship goes out the window, and Pang packs his bags for his new, swanky, gifted apartment. Meanwhile, the gifted gang starts to smell something fishy with their curriculum. It's like they've signed up for Hogwarts, but instead of magic, they get equations that would make Einstein scratch his head. One fateful evening, our band of teenage anomalies gathers in the computer lab, which is less about coding and more about cracking the code of their bizarre reality. Enter Wave, the resident tech whiz, who's been spying on Mr. Palm's laptop, because who needs privacy when you're in a school for the supernaturally talented? Wave, channeling his inner James Bond, reveals he's got the goods on Mr. Palm. He's been hacking into systems with just a touch, a skill that makes your average IT guy look like he's working with an abacus. Everyone's jaws hit the floor, but before they can grill Wave, the school director pops up on the screen, presumably to give his version of a TED Talk. The director, beaming like a proud papa, spills the beans. These kids haven't been randomly picked for their love of trigonometry. Nope, they're the next step in human evolution, each with their own brand of superhero skills. He assures them this isn't some twisted experiment, just an after-school special with a supernatural twist. Post-meeting, the gang is shook. Pang, our ever-relatable hero, can't wrap his head around being anything more than a regular Joe with a penchant for stumbling into bizarre situations. The next day, it's show and tell time with superpowers. Everyone's got something up their sleeve, except Pang and another guy who's probably wondering if his ability is being invisibly ordinary. We've got skills mimicking, twin telepathy, and Namtan, who's basically a human, wears Waldo for objects. She touches a pencil box and does her psychic GPS thing, impressing everyone except her pen, which has gone on an unscheduled vacation, courtesy of Ohm. Speaking of Ohm, he's convinced his superpower is stand-up comedy, until Namtan's pen pulls a Houdini in his pencil box. Meanwhile, Fred, in a decision-making process that rivals choosing socks in the dark, entrusts Ohm with the test papers. Because, obviously, when you think safekeeping, you think of the guy whose only known superpower might be turning homework into origami birds. In a twist that would make Houdini proud, the test papers disappear when the principal checks Ohm's bag. Surprise, Ohm's superpower is unveiled. He's a walking, talking, vanishing act. He proudly demonstrates his newfound talent, making things disappear like a magician who's lost the instruction manual. Mr. Palm, ever the voice of reason in a sea of teenage chaos, cautions Ohm about his here today, gone tomorrow antics. Because let's face it, making things reappear is apparently still on the to-do list of his superhuman user manual. In the world of Rida High, where common sense takes a back seat to teenage drama, our story continues with Ohm, the resident Houdini, having a not-so-magical moment in the bathroom. Here comes Fred, the guy whose brain power could be outmatched by a toaster, demanding the test papers back. Ohm, in a panic, makes Fred disappear faster than a slice of pizza at a weight loss camp. Instant regret kicks in, and Ohm runs away like a squirrel with stage fright. The next day, Fred's vanishing act is the hot gossip. Ohm keeps mum about his accidental magic trick until Wave, the Sherlock Holmes of the digital age, exposes the bathroom fiasco to the entire class via CCTV. Ohm, now feeling like a villain in a superhero movie, takes refuge in the computer lab, probably hoping to blend in with the keyboards. Pang, ever the problem solver, finds Ohm and suggests a little reverse magic. Lo and behold, Namtan's pen, which had also been given the Houdini treatment, pops back into existence in Ohm's pencil box. Cue the light bulb moment. Ohm realizes he might just be able to undo his disappearing acts. So, they head to the scene of the crime, the bathroom, where Ohm attempts his best bring Fred back spell. After a few tense moments and probably some crossed fingers, Fred reappears, slightly shaken but otherwise fine. Fred probably thought he'd taken a wrong turn into Narnia. In class, Ohm becomes the poster boy for power control, showing off his newfound ability to make things reappear, much to Mr. Palm's delight. He's like the school's Dumbledore, always encouraging them to push their bizarre boundaries. Later, Ohm bumps into Fred, who's about as clueless as a baby in a quantum physics lecture. Fred doesn't even recognize him. Maybe Ohm's powers include a side of memory wiping. Intriguing. The gifted crew spends the next few days exploring their powers like they're on a treasure hunt. Namtan, now the human touch and tell, can identify the owners of objects by mere contact. But plot twist, using her powers spikes her blood pressure to levels that would alarm a doctor. Mr. Palm, the ever-caring mentor, dives into the issue and discovers it's a family trait. Who knew superpowers came with health warnings? Meanwhile, in the library, Namtan uncovers a file listing every Rita High superhero alumni. It's like a LinkedIn for the supernaturally talented. They're all doing great, probably bending the corporate world to their will. And guess what? Mr. Palm is an alumnus too, from the ancient times of Batch 3. But wait, there's a mystery page missing about a student named Nan. He's like the forgotten spice in an otherwise flavorful dish. Namtan uses her powers and reveals it's about a guy named Nan. Sadly, his story is about as detailed as a tweet. In the next class, they grill Mr. Palm about Nan, the enigma. Turns out he dropped out because he couldn't keep up. In the world of super geniuses, even being just a genius can be tough. So, the saga at Ritha High continues, where every day is a mix of Hogwarts and a sci-fi convention, and where the line between ordinary and extraordinary is blurrier than the school's Wi-Fi signal. After some time, we find our heroine Namtan, deep in her role as amateur detective, courtesy of Mr. Palm. He leads her to a storeroom, presumably because it's the perfect place for dramatic revelations. He hands her a box of Nan's old stuff, because nothing screams mystery like rummaging through a former student's collection of probably dusty yearbooks and mixtapes. Namtan, in an Oscar-worthy performance, dons Nan's glasses, ready to see the world through the eyes of someone who dreamed of touching stars but apparently couldn't handle high school algebra. She wanders the halls and discovers Pang's room was once Nan's launchpad for his astronaut dreams. This sends Namtan's suspicionometer off the charts, because obviously someone who's good at math and dreams of space is totally incapable of struggling in school. Meanwhile, Mr. Palm, noticing Namtan's health deteriorating faster than the school's Wi-Fi connection, suggests she take a break from her powers. But Namtan, too invested in her newfound role as the school's Sherlock Holmes, decides to ignore this sound medical advice. Enter Pang, her trusty Watson, who helps her dig through the school's forbidden forest of documents. They find a resignation letter with Nan's name, but, plot twist, it's signed with Mr. Palm's pen. Because why forge a signature when you can just use your own pen and call it a day? Namtan, now more determined than a cat chasing a laser pointer, decides to break into the school warehouse. She gets Pang to pick the lock because, at Rita High, breaking and entering is just another extracurricular activity. Once inside, she locks herself in because, hey, who needs backup in a potentially dangerous situation? Using Nan's jacket and glasses, Namtan gets a vision of his last day in the warehouse. He was onto something red folder big. But before he can say Eureka, he's ambushed by mystery men and a lady with a penchant for file theft. Before Namtan can uncover more, her blood pressure decides to hit the roof, and she collapses, leaving Pang to find her in a plot twist as unexpected as a scheduled test. Fast forward to the hospital, where Namtan's mom is ready to pull her out of the school that treats student health like an optional quest. But Pang, in a display of persuasive skills that would make a used car salesman proud, convinces her to let Namtan stay. In the final scene, back in the classroom, Pang asks Namtan about the truth she uncovered. But surprise? Namtan has a memory like a goldfish and claims she passed out upon entering the warehouse. So much for our grand detective escapade.